There is a number that has quietly shaped the supplement industry for the last 4 decades: $40 billion. That is what Americans spend every year on protein powders, muscle-building capsules, and recovery shakes, most of them processed, most of them manufactured, and most of them engineered to make you forget that people were building extraordinary physical strength for thousands of years before any of it existed. The Book of Numbers records that the Israelites in the wilderness mourned the loss of the fish, the cucumbers, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic they had eaten in Egypt, not the grain, not the bread, the protein, the dense, specific, complete protein foods that kept a nation physically capable of sustained labor under conditions we would consider extreme today. That detail wasn't recorded because it was sentimental. It was recorded because it was true, and because food was clearly understood as essential to sustaining the body through demanding conditions. Today we are walking through 13 breakfasts that honor that understanding, 13 meals that appear in various forms, across scripture, across ancient agricultural tradition, and now across peer-reviewed research, all converging on the same conclusion. Pay attention to number 1. Most people have this ingredient in their kitchen right now and have never understood the specific mechanism that makes it one of the most sophisticated muscle repair tools in the human food supply. And when we reach number 7, I am going to tell you the story of a man who survived 3 days of physical collapse on nothing but what ancient wisdom had always considered a complete meal, and what modern biochemistry now explains as a precise act of cellular restoration. Number 13. Overnight oats with whey and casein. The Book of Ruth opens in a barley field, and that setting is significant. Barley and oats, whole cereal grains soaked before eating, sustained agricultural workers in the ancient Near East through long periods of physical labor. Ruth herself receives parched grain from Boaz, roasted whole grain, eaten directly in the field, not bread. That distinction mattered then, and modern science explains why. The Egyptians soaked grain overnight in clay vessels, as did the Norse and subsistence farmers across sub-Saharan Africa and the pre-Columbian Americas. Cultures with no contact independently discovered that soaking grain overnight made it more digestible, smoother, and more sustaining for a long morning of physical work. This shared discovery reflects centuries of practical observation. Modern nutrition science confirms the principle. When oats are soaked overnight in a mixture containing whey and casein from milk and Greek yogurt, the oats absorb the protein-rich liquid. Each bite, therefore, contains protein already incorporated into the grain. Whey, the faster dairy protein, begins raising blood amino acids within 30 to 60 minutes. Casein, which makes up roughly 80% of Greek yogurt's protein, releases amino acids more slowly, continuing for up to 7 hours. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that combining fast and slow proteins can produce greater muscle protein synthesis than consuming either source alone. Build it this way. Combine half a cup of rolled oats, not instant or steel cut, with half a cup of plain, full-fat Greek yogurt, half a cup of whole milk, 1 scoop of vanilla whey protein powder, and 1 tablespoon of whole chia seeds. Stir thoroughly. Seal and refrigerate for at least 8 hours. By morning, it should be thick and pudding-like, with a faint sweetness from the casein. Top with fresh or frozen blueberries. The result will be pale gold beneath the berries, soft but slightly textured from the chia seeds. What the people in Ruth's barley field understood through daily practice, and what modern clinical nutrition has confirmed through controlled research, is essentially the same principle. A rebuilding body needs a steady supply of building material, not one sudden spike followed by nothing. The ancient practice of soaking grain was, biochemically, remarkably sound. Number 12. Tuna and egg breakfast toast. The fish trade of the ancient world was far more than casual commerce. Dried and salted fish appears throughout Egyptian, Greek, Roman, and Phoenician records as a prized source of sustained energy for working people. The Gospels describe two feeding miracles centered on fish. While the disciples themselves were professional fishermen who performed demanding physical labor for hours on the lake, fish was not a side dish. It was the protein foundation of the working diet. The Scandinavians, Pacific Northwest coastal peoples, and Japanese cultures, with no direct contact, independently developed traditions built around dried, fermented, or cold-cured fish as a primary protein source. Japan developed katsuobushi, dried fermented tuna, as early as the 8th century. The Norse dried cod until it became almost wood-like in density. These were practical foods for people who needed to restore their physical strength every day. What makes tuna particularly remarkable today is its protein-to-calorie ratio. One can of water-packed tuna provides roughly 25 grams of complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids, for barely 100 calories. That ratio rivals or exceeds chicken breast, egg whites, and many dairy proteins. Tuna also provides EPA and DHA, omega-3 fatty acids that research suggests can enhance the anabolic response to protein. In other words, the protein and healthy fats work together to support muscle building. One preparation detail is often overlooked. The omega-3 content of canned tuna varies by species and packing medium. Albacore packed in water retains more omega-3s than light tuna. Adding a teaspoon of quality olive oil when serving water-packed tuna can also improve absorption of fat-soluble nutrients such as vitamin D and omega-3s, which require dietary fat for efficient intestinal absorption. The oil is therefore more than flavor, it helps deliver those nutrients. Toast 1 slice of dense whole grain bread with visible seeds. Drain a can of albacore tuna and mix it with 1 teaspoon of olive oil, fresh lemon juice, and cracked black pepper. Spread it over the toast. Then add 2 slices of cold hard-boiled egg and 3 or 4 thin slices of ripe avocado. The result combines crisp toast, soft tuna, and buttery avocado. While the contrasting colors make the meal visually appealing, it takes about 5 minutes and provides more than 35 grams of complete protein. The ancient fish merchants who preserved their catch in clay jars had no mass spectrometers. They simply observed that people who regularly ate fish could work longer, recover faster, and remain physically capable later in life. Modern research is now working backward from that observation to understand why. Number 11. Chocolate peanut butter smoothie. The cacao plant was highly valued among the Maya and Aztec civilizations, where it was used as currency, in ritual contexts, and as an important drink for elites and warriors. The word cacao appears in Mayan texts dating to at least 400 CE, and the preparation ground cacao seeds, mixed with water, and consumed as a frothy, bitter liquid, was specifically associated with physical endurance and recovery from exertion. The Aztec emperor Montezuma was reportedly associated with its consumption. The compounds in cacao, specifically a class of polyphenols called flavonols, have since been identified as having measurable anti-inflammatory properties. Managing excessive inflammation is one part of the broader recovery process. Peanuts, meanwhile, appear in the archaeological record of South American civilizations as far back as 7,000 years. Not as a snack food. As a high-density energy staple that sustained people through periods of intense physical demand, peanuts were valued in South American societies as a dense source of energy and nutrients, making them useful for people engaged in physically demanding work and travel. The smoothie format itself is a modern delivery mechanism for ancient ingredients. Whey protein isolated from dairy is the fastest digesting complete protein available, raising blood amino acid levels within 20 to 30 minutes of consumption. That speed matters at specific moments immediately after waking, when the body has been in a 12-hour fast, and immediately after morning training, when the muscle's uptake machinery is most receptive. The banana in this smoothie contributes not just potassium, but a specific type of carbohydrate, a mix of sucrose and fructose that replenishes both muscle glycogen and liver glycogen simultaneously. The two storage sites, The body depletes during overnight fasting and morning exercise. Here is the nuance most smoothie recipes miss. Cocoa powder, not Dutch processed. But natural unsweetened cocoa retains significantly more of the flavanol content than alkalized cocoa. Dutch processing raises the pH of cocoa, which improves its color and reduces bitterness, but destroys a meaningful percentage of the flavanols in the process. The darker, slightly more acidic natural cocoa powder is the version that delivers the anti-inflammatory benefit. Blend 1 cup of cold whole milk, 1 scoop of whey protein isolate, 1 frozen, banana frozen, not fresh, because freezing creates a thicker texture without ice dilution, 1 tablespoon of natural peanut butter with no added oil, a 1/4 cup of dry rolled oats, and 1 tablespoon of natural unsweetened cocoa powder. Blend until smooth. The result is thick, deeply brown, and faintly sweet, with a bitterness at the finish from the cocoa. This is breakfast in under 3 minutes, delivering over 30 grams of complete protein. The Aztec warriors who drank bitter cacao before battle were not performing ritual. They were loading anti-inflammatory compounds before a period of extreme physical stress. The mechanism has changed in name only. Number 10. Turkey sausage and sweet potato breakfast hash. The domestication of the turkey in Mesoamerica dates to at least 800 BCE, and turkey was a staple protein for the Aztec, Maya, and Pueblo peoples long before European contact. Hernán Cortés reportedly encountered thousands of turkeys being raised in the markets of Tenochtitlan. They did not understand the nutritional science behind choosing turkey, but generations of observation showed that reliable access to lean turkey protein helped maintain physical strength and capacity, something even Spanish soldiers noticed. The sweet potato has an even older history. Cultivated across the Pacific Islands and the Americas before spreading to the Philippines and Africa, it was deliberately carried along ocean trade routes because people recognized its sustaining value. Polynesian navigators associated kumara, or sweet potato, with physical strength and ate it before long voyages. In the American South, sweet potatoes became an important food crop and source of carbohydrates, beta-carotene, and potassium. The beta-carotene in sweet potato offers something white potato does not. The body converts beta-carotene into vitamin A, which plays a role in gene expression governing muscle cell differentiation, the process that helps muscle stem cells form new fibers after damage. Vitamin A deficiency can impair muscle regeneration even when protein intake is sufficient, meaning sweet potato provides more than carbohydrates. Dice 1 medium sweet potato and saute it in 1 tablespoon of olive oil over medium heat for about 12 minutes, turning occasionally until the edges caramelize. Push it aside and cook 3 ounces of diced or ground turkey with smoked paprika, garlic powder, and black pepper until fully cooked. Add a large handful of spinach and let it wilt for about 30 seconds. Make 2 wells. Crack an egg into each. Cover and cook until the whites are set while the yolks remain slightly soft. Serve directly from the skillet. The deep orange potato, dark green spinach, and golden yolks make a striking dish containing over 40 grams of protein. The Polynesian navigators who carried kumara across the Pacific knew nothing about beta-carotene or muscle cell differentiation. They simply observed that those who ate it arrived in better condition. That, in its own way, was a form of scientific method. Number 9. Protein pancakes. The earliest pancake analog in the archaeological record appears in ancient Greece, a flat cake called a taganias, made from wheat flour, olive oil, honey, and curdled milk. Ancient Roman soldiers carried a version of this, a flat griddle cake made with eggs and milk, called alida dolcia, as campaign rations because it was calorically dense, portable, and made from ingredients that could be carried without spoiling quickly. The protein content of the Roman soldier's pancake was not measured in grams, but the basic combination, wheat for carbohydrate, eggs for protein, and dairy for additional nutrients, resembles the structure of a modern pre-training meal. Here is the preparation detail that elevates this beyond ordinary pancake recipes. Blending rather than mixing is not an aesthetic choice. When you blend oats, eggs, cottage cheese, and protein powder together, the oats are partially broken down by the blade, releasing their starch content and allowing it to integrate more evenly into the batter. This changes the glycemic behavior of the finished pancake. The starch is more evenly distributed and surrounded by protein and fat from the cottage cheese and eggs, which slows its digestion compared to the concentrated starch pockets that form in a simply mixed batter. The result is a more sustained blood sugar curve after eating. There is also a synergy between cottage cheese and egg in cooked preparations that most people have never encountered. Cottage cheese contains whey and casein in their natural ratio, and when heat is applied through griddle, cooking the whey protein in the cottage cheese partially denatures and integrates into the egg protein matrix. The finished pancake has a protein structure more similar to a dense soufflé than a traditional pancake, which is why the texture is notably richer and more cohesive. Blend a half cup of old-fashioned rolled oats, 2 whole eggs, a half cup of full-fat cottage cheese, 1 ripe banana, 1 scoop of vanilla whey protein powder, a half teaspoon of cinnamon, and a pinch of salt until completely smooth. Allow the batter to rest for 2 minutes. It will thicken slightly. Cook on a griddle, lightly coated with butter over medium-low heat, using a 1/4 cup of batter per pancake. The pancakes cook more slowly than traditional ones. Allow them 3 to 4 minutes per side before flipping. The finished surface will be golden brown, with a slightly springy center. A full serving of 4 pancakes delivers over 40 grams of protein. Roman soldiers carried their version of this across campaigns through Gaul, through Britannia, through the deserts of North Africa. What sustained an empire's fighting force is not so different from what modern exercise science would prescribe. Number 8. High-protein breakfast sandwich. The egg in Judaic tradition held a specific place at the Passover Seder table, the roasted egg, called the bitza, representing both mourning and the cycle of renewal. Specifically, the renewal of life through hardship. But the daily use of eggs in ancient Jewish, Egyptian, and Roman households was thoroughly practical. Roman agricultural manuals from the 1st century explicitly recommended eggs as morning food for people engaged in physical labor. Not because the writers understood amino acid profiles, but because the observation across generations was unambiguous. The people who began the day with egg-based meals worked harder and lasted longer. The key preparation insight for a high-protein breakfast sandwich that most recipe developers overlook is the English muffin's sourdough history. Traditional English muffins were a sourdough product. The characteristic nooks and crannies are formed by gas bubbles produced during fermentation. That fermentation process partially breaks down the phytic acid in the grain, which is an anti-nutrient that binds minerals like zinc and magnesium and reduces their absorption. A genuine sourdough English muffin, not a commercial imitation, delivers meaningfully more bioavailable zinc than an unfermented whole grain product of the same size. And zinc is directly involved in the synthesis of IGF-1, the insulin-like growth factor that mediates muscle protein synthesis downstream from the initial amino acid signal. The turkey sausage patty in this sandwich carries an additional compound worth naming. Turkey provides the amino acid tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin. Most of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut, where it plays important roles in intestinal function. Tryptophan is therefore part of the broader amino acid profile supplied by the meal. Toast 1 whole grain English muffin sourdough variety where available. Cook 1 turkey sausage patty in a dry skillet until cooked through and slightly caramelized on the exterior. Fry 1 whole egg in the residual fat from the sausage, cooking until the white is fully set, but the yolk remains slightly soft. Layer the sausage, egg, and 1 slice of sharp cheddar on the toasted muffin. The heat from the egg and sausage will begin to melt the cheese immediately. Eat immediately. The texture contrast between crisp muffin exterior, yielding egg, and the slight give of the sausage patty is part of what makes this format work. Total protein approximately 30 to 35 grams. The Roman writers who recommended eggs for laboring people were not guessing. They were documenting, carefully and repeatedly, what happened to people who ate them versus people who didn't. That is, research. It simply predates the peer review system by 2,000 years. Number 7. Smoked salmon, avocado, and eggs. This is the story I promised you at the beginning. Close your eyes and place yourself in the Sinai wilderness, a harsh limestone and granite desert where daytime temperatures reach 40 degrees Celsius and shade is almost non-existent. The prophet Elijah had been running for his life after the confrontation at Mount Carmel, the killing of the prophets of Baal, and Jezebel's order for his execution. 1 Kings chapter 19 describes what happened next. Elijah collapsed beneath a juniper tree and asked to die. He was in severe physical and psychological distress, exhausted and dehydrated. And he may also have been experiencing an energy deficit. Then he fell asleep. An angel touched him and said, "Arise and eat." The scripture tells us exactly what was provided: a cake baked on coals and a cruse of water. He ate, drank, and rested. Then the angel returned a second time, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for thee." The passage describes something remarkably similar to what modern sports nutrition recognizes as staged recovery. The first feeding addressed an immediate energy deficit. The second provided additional fuel before prolonged exertion, supporting glycogen restoration and sustained access to nutrients. Scripture says that, strengthened by that food, Elijah traveled 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb after having completely collapsed. Salmon and eggs were not Elijah's desert meal, but the nutritional principle is remarkably relevant. Salmon provides EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that older adults consuming omega-3s alongside protein demonstrated an enhanced anabolic response. In other words, omega-3s appeared to improve the muscle's response to amino acids. The protein could do more work because the right fats were present. Eggs provide complete protein, choline important for muscle cell membrane integrity, and vitamin D, which research increasingly connects with muscle fiber composition, particularly the fast-twitch type 2 fibers that tend to decline with age. Avocado adds monounsaturated fat, which can slow gastric emptying and extend the period over which amino acids become available. It also provides potassium, a crucial electrolyte involved in the electrical signaling that allows muscles to contract. There is also an important detail about the salmon itself. Cold smoked salmon, the silky, translucent variety, is smoked at relatively low temperatures and is not cooked through in the same way as hot smoked salmon. Because less heat is applied, some heat-sensitive nutrients may be better preserved. So choosing cold smoked salmon is more than a texture preference. It can make a nutritional difference. For preparation, poach 2 eggs in gently simmering water with a splash of white vinegar. The acid helps the egg white hold together around the yolk. Cook for exactly 3 minutes. While they poach, arrange 3 ounces of cold smoked salmon on a plate and add half a ripe avocado. Thinly sliced, remove the eggs with a slotted spoon. Let them drain for 10 seconds. Then place them over the salmon. Finish with fresh dill, black pepper, and a few drops of lemon juice. Break the yolks and let them run over the salmon, creating a simple sauce of protein and healthy fat. Total protein, more than 35 grams. Number 6. Chicken and egg breakfast burrito. The nixtamalization of corn, the process of soaking dried maize in an alkaline solution of water and lime, was developed by Mesoamerican civilizations, most prominently the Maya and Aztec, at least 3,500 years ago. This was not cooking for flavor. This was nutritional engineering. Untreated corn contains niacin in a bound form that the human body cannot absorb. Nixtamalization breaks that bond, making the niacin bioavailable. It also increases the amount of calcium available from the corn and can improve the nutritional quality and digestibility of the grain. Although it does not make the amino acid profile complete on its own, the civilizations that ate nixtamalized corn in the form of tortillas were nutritionally superior to European populations that adopted corn without the process. The niacin deficiency disease pellagra devastated European corn-eating populations for centuries, while Mesoamerican populations showed no such deficiency. The corn tortilla is not a simple carbohydrate. It is an ancient biotechnology. Black beans deserve specific attention in this context. The protein in black beans is incomplete alone. It lacks sufficient methionine. But when combined with the complete protein of eggs and chicken in this burrito, the amino acid profiles complement each other. The methionine from the animal protein fills the gap in the bean protein. The lysine abundant in the beans, an amino acid that is limiting in many grains, is already covered by the animal proteins. The result is a broader and more complete amino acid delivery than any single protein source in the burrito could provide alone. Research on mixed protein meals, combining plant and animal proteins within a single eating occasion, consistently shows this complementarity effect on amino acid bioavailability. Here is the leucine detail that matters for muscle protein synthesis. A commonly cited leucine intake for maximally stimulating muscle protein synthesis in a meal is around 2.5 to 3 grams, although the response varies with age, training status, and the overall meal. 3 ounces of chicken breast provides approximately 1.8 grams of leucine. 2 eggs provide approximately 0.5 grams. The black beans contribute a further 0.3 grams. Together, this burrito likely provides enough leucine to strongly stimulate muscle protein synthesis, while the combination of protein sources also broadens the meal's amino acid profile. Scramble 2 large eggs in 1 teaspoon of butter over medium-low heat. Removing from heat while still slightly underset, they will continue cooking. In the same pan, warm 3 ounces of diced cooked chicken breast with a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin and a 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika until heated through. Warm a large whole grain tortilla directly over a gas flame for 20 seconds per side, or in a dry skillet, until it develops small char marks. Layer the eggs, chicken, a 1/4 cup of warmed black beans, 2 tablespoons of sharp cheese, and 2 tablespoons of fresh salsa down the center. Fold the sides in. Roll from the bottom up, and wrap the bottom half in foil. The foil holds the heat and allows you to eat this while standing, walking, or driving. Total protein, 40 grams or more. The Maya engineers who developed nixtamalization were solving a problem they could observe but not name. The science now has a name for what they solved. The solution has not changed. Number 5. Egg white and turkey scramble. The dietary laws of Leviticus and Deuteronomy have generated enormous theological commentary, but there is a nutritional observation embedded in the kosher separation of meat and dairy that modern science has quietly validated from a different direction. The kashrut tradition required that meat and dairy not be consumed together. One effect of this separation, whatever its original intent was, that meat meals were eaten without the dairy protein that would have accompanied them, which meant that meat protein was assessed on its own merit in the traditional diet, and lean meat protein, consumed without the caloric density of dairy fat, represents one of the most efficient muscle-building substrates available. This is, in a sense, what the egg white and turkey scramble represents: pure, stripped, lean protein delivery. Egg whites deserve more precise attention than they typically receive. The protein in egg white is primarily ovalbumin, approximately 54%, along with ovotransferrin, ovomucoid, and leucozyme, among others. Ovalbumin is particularly notable because it is unusually heat-stable, maintaining its structure through a range of cooking temperatures that would denature most proteins. This means that properly cooked egg white retains its amino acid profile and bioavailability even when fully set, unlike some plant proteins, which can be significantly degraded by high-heat cooking. The biological value of whole egg protein is measured at approximately 100, the reference standard, against which all other proteins are measured. Egg white alone scores approximately 88, which remains higher than most other single-food protein sources, including chicken breast, which scores approximately 79. The iron in spinach present in this scramble requires a specific context note that most recipes omit. Plant-based iron is non-heme iron, which is absorbed at a rate of 2 to 15% compared to heme iron from meat, which absorbs at 15 to 35%. The presence of vitamin C dramatically improves non-heme iron absorption. Studies suggest it can increase absorption by 2 to 4 times. The bell peppers in this scramble are among the highest vitamin C foods available. A single medium red bell pepper contains more vitamin C than an orange. The spinach and peppers are not a random vegetable addition. They are a nutritional system designed to maximize iron delivery. Whisk 4 egg whites with 1 whole egg. The whole egg contributes choline and fat-soluble vitamins. That egg whites lack a pinch of salt and cracked black pepper. Heat 1 teaspoon of olive oil in a non-stick skillet over medium heat. Add 2 ounces of finely diced turkey breast and cook until just opaque. Add a 1/4 cup of diced red bell pepper and cook for 90 seconds. Pour in the egg mixture and fold gently with a spatula, pulling from the edges toward the center over low to medium heat. When the eggs are just set, still slightly moist at the center, fold in a large handful of baby spinach and remove from heat immediately. The residual heat will wilt the spinach without overcooking the egg. Total protein over 35 grams for under 300 calories. The observation that lean meat protein, eaten cleanly, built physical capacity was ancient. The mechanism biological value scores, non-heme iron absorption rates. Vitamin C cofactors is new. The outcome was always the same. Number 4. Cottage cheese scrambled eggs. There is a Talmudic teaching that considers the preparation of food with the same seriousness as prayer, the idea that how you prepare sustenance is an act of intention, not merely of appetite. That teaching has a precise modern application in this recipe, because the technique of folding cottage cheese into eggs before scrambling is not merely a culinary trick. It is a structural intervention that changes the biochemistry of the finished dish. When cottage cheese, which is essentially curd protein suspended in whey, is whisked into raw egg, the casein micelles from the cottage cheese distribute throughout the egg protein matrix. When heat is then applied slowly and gently, 2 protein systems cook simultaneously and interlock. The egg proteins denature and set at approximately 70 degrees Celsius. The casein proteins in the cottage cheese, which are more heat stable, remain partially undenatured and create a matrix within the egg that holds moisture, which is why cottage cheese scrambled eggs are creamier than eggs scrambled with cream, which is simply fat with no structural protein contribution. The practical result is that the finished scramble contains both fast-digesting egg protein and slow-digesting casein in a single dish, extending the window of amino acid availability after the meal. Research on protein timing and muscle protein synthesis shows that the duration of elevated amino acid availability matters, not just the peak concentration. A meal that delivers amino acids for 4 hours is superior to a meal that delivers a larger dose for 90 minutes, particularly for people who are not eating again for several hours after breakfast. Whisk 3 large eggs with a 1/4 cup of full-fat cottage cheese. Use full fat rather than low fat, because the fat in the cottage cheese carries fat-soluble micronutrients and slows gastric emptying slightly, extending the amino acid release further. Season with salt, white pepper, and a pinch of dried chives. Heat 1 teaspoon of butter in a non-stick pan over low heat, genuinely low, lower than you think necessary. Pour in the egg mixture and let it sit undisturbed for 30 seconds before beginning to fold gently with a silicone spatula. Fold every 30 seconds, pulling from the edges. Remove from heat when the eggs are still slightly underset. They will finish cooking in the residual heat of the pan in the 30 seconds it takes to plate them. The texture is extraordinarily soft, almost billowing, with a slight tang from the cottage cheese. Total protein, approximately 30 grams for what appears to be a modest portion. The Talmudic teachers who elevated food preparation to the level of sacred practice may not have intended a biochemical argument, but they were correct that how you prepare food changes what it does to you. In this case, the science is precise about why. Number 3. Greek yogurt parfait with high-protein granola. Fermented dairy appears in some of humanity's oldest written records. Sumerians produced a fermented dairy food, mentioned in cuneiform texts, dating to around 3000 BCE, not exactly cheese or yogurt, but a thickened, cultured dairy staple. Indian Ayurvedic traditions describe dahi, a cultured yogurt, as a food with therapeutic uses, although the surviving texts are much later than 6000 BCE. Genghis Khan's Mongol armies reportedly carried fermented mare's milk kumis during campaigns lasting months. Fermentation kept the milk stable without refrigeration, while providing protein that helped soldiers remain physically capable across enormous distances. The Lactobacillus bulgaricus and Streptococcus thermophilus cultures used in modern Greek yogurt descend from the bacterial cultures ancient dairy makers discovered through temperature and time. These bacteria acidify milk and partially break down casein through enzymatic activity. This produces bioactive peptides, specific amino acid sequences that can have biological effects beyond basic nutrition. Peptides such as IPP and VPP have been studied for ACE inhibition, modest blood pressure reduction, and anti-inflammatory effects. Yogurt, therefore, does more than simply provide protein. Here is the granola distinction most recipes and health influencers ignore. Commercial granola, including products marketed as high protein, is usually sweetened with added sugar and bound with honey or syrup. It is also baked at high temperatures, which can partially denature whey protein isolate or nut flour added to the mixture. Whey protein begins to denature meaningfully above 70 degrees Celsius. While most granola is baked at 180 degrees or higher, the protein still provides amino acids, but digestion and bioavailability can be altered. Homemade granola baked longer at around 150 degrees Celsius preserves more of its protein structure. Layer 1 cup of plain, full-fat Greek yogurt in a glass with half a cup of granola, ideally made from oats, nuts, seeds, and minimal sweetener. Add a generous layer of blueberries and raspberries, which together provide a broader range of polyphenols than either fruit alone. Add another layer of yogurt, then finish with 1 tablespoon of mixed pumpkin and hemp seeds. Pumpkin seeds are among the richest food sources of zinc, with approximately 2 tablespoons providing 30% of daily requirements. Zinc is required for enzymes involved in regulating muscle protein catabolism. The seeds are therefore functional, not merely decorative. Total protein over 30 grams. The Mongol soldiers carrying fermented milk across Central Asia were not thinking about lactobacillus or bioactive peptides. They were thinking about remaining capable across distances that inferior food supplies could not support. The cultures in the jar were quietly performing their biochemistry, long before anyone knew what to call it. Number 2. Steak and eggs. There is a moment in the book of Genesis that passes quickly but carries surprising nutritional significance. When 3 visitors appear to Abraham at the Oaks of Mamre, Abraham does not offer bread. He runs to the herd, selects a calf described as tender and good, and has it prepared with curds and milk. This was the hospitality meal of the ancient Near East, complete animal protein paired with fermented dairy. The combination was deliberately presented as the highest form of provision, not because ancient writers understood nutrition science, but because they could observe what kept people strong. The leucine content of beef is more significant than most people realize. A 4-ounce serving of sirloin contains a substantial amount of leucine. That matters because a meal containing roughly 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine is often considered sufficient to strongly stimulate muscle protein synthesis in many adults. This is not simply a claim that protein is beneficial. It is a specific amino acid contributing to activation of a specific molecular pathway. A serving of steak can provide a large portion of that leucine target on its own. The eggs add choline, a compound required for the structural integrity of muscle cell membranes and the ion gradient needed for contraction. The body can produce some choline, but dietary intake is still important because endogenous production is not always sufficient to meet physiological needs. Eggs are among the richest dietary sources. 2 eggs provide about 300 milligrams, more than half the daily adequate intake. They are therefore not simply another protein source. They provide a compound essential for muscle cells to function properly. Rosemary, commonly added to roasted potatoes, is not merely a flavor choice. It contains rosmarinic acid and carnosic acid, polyphenols with antioxidant activity that, in some research assays, compares with or exceeds vitamin E. Resistance training creates reactive oxygen species and oxidative stress. Antioxidants consumed near training may help moderate that stress during the early stages of recovery. The herb on your potatoes has a functional role. For the meal, sear a 4-ounce sirloin in a cast iron skillet over high heat, 2 minutes per side for medium rare. 3 for medium. Remove it and rest under foil for 5 minutes. Using the remaining beef fat, fry 2 eggs until the whites are fully set and their edges become lightly crisp. Dice potatoes. Toss them with olive oil, fresh rosemary, and sea salt. Then roast at 220 degrees Celsius for 25 minutes. Turning once halfway through, serve the steak, eggs, and potatoes together. The finished meal provides more than 45 grams of protein. Abraham had no modern nutritional vocabulary, yet he understood what this meal could provide his guests. Modern research is gradually catching up with a conclusion his tradition had already recognized. Number 1. Greek Yogurt Protein Bowl. We began this list with fermented dairy, and we return to it here not because it is the simplest option, but because it is the most layered, historically documented, and the one that most completely embodies the principle behind every breakfast on this list. The history of strained yogurt, what we now call Greek yogurt, stretches across recorded civilization. The Mesopotamians produced it. Indian Ayurvedic tradition prescribed it specifically for physical recovery. The Ottoman Empire perfected the straining technique, hanging yogurt in cloth bags overnight to separate the whey and dramatically concentrate casein protein. Byzantine monastic communities preserved yogurt cultures through centuries when livestock management was essential to daily life. Modern fermented dairy cultures belong to the same broad family of microorganisms used in traditional yogurt making. Although an unbroken biological lineage from ancient products cannot be established from historical records alone, there is also a compound most people have never heard of that helps explain why fermented dairy can function as more than simply a protein source. Casein hydrolysates, partially digested fragments of casein created through bacterial fermentation or enzymatic processing, contain peptides such as beta-casomorphin. These compounds have been studied for their interaction with opioid receptors in the gastrointestinal tract, offering one possible biochemical explanation for dairy protein's strong satiety effect. Greek yogurt that keeps you satisfied longer may therefore be doing more than delivering casein. It is also providing bioactive fragments that interact with gut satiety signaling. The chia seeds in this bowl have an important preparation detail that most recipes overlook. Whole chia seeds may be only partly digested because their outer coating can limit access to some of the nutrients inside. Ground chia seeds, or chia soaked in liquid, are generally easier to digest. Allowing the chia to soak overnight in the yogurt is therefore more than a convenience. It can improve access to its nutrients, including omega-3 fatty acids. The almonds also deserve attention. Their fat-soluble vitamin E alpha-tocopherol requires dietary fat for absorption, and almonds naturally provide that fat. Their fat also slightly slows gastric emptying, extending the release of nutrients from the bowl. This creates a meal that begins working relatively quickly through the whey component of the yogurt and continues providing amino acids through the slower digesting casein for several hours. Few single protein products naturally reproduce this biphasic release pattern. Build the bowl in about 3 minutes. Start with 1 cup of full-fat plain Greek yogurt, not low-fat, because the fat carries fat-soluble vitamins and helps moderate digestion. Stir in 2 tablespoons of whole chia seeds and let them soak for at least 10 minutes while you prepare the rest. Add a small handful of raw almonds rather than roasted ones. Since high-temperature roasting can oxidize some polyunsaturated fats, add a generous handful of mixed berries. Frozen berries thawed overnight are nutritionally comparable to fresh and are often cheaper. Stir in 1 scoop of your preferred protein powder, then finish with a thin drizzle of raw, unfiltered honey, cloudy, or even slightly crystallized, rather than clear commercial honey, because it can retain antimicrobial enzymes such as glucose oxidase that heat processing can destroy. With a quality protein powder, the bowl provides more than 35 grams of protein and takes less than 5 minutes to prepare. The flavor is complete tart yogurt, sweet berries and honey, rich almonds, and the slight texture of hydrated chia. It is satisfying enough that consistency requires very little willpower. Every breakfast on this list delivers protein. But beneath all of them is one principle that ancient food traditions understood and modern food production can make us forget. Processing can destroy what makes these foods work. The most bioavailable whey protein is cold processed. Using temperatures low enough to preserve its native structure, commercial whey is often heat processed, acid processed, or both. Yogurt that retains beneficial bioactive peptides depends on live cultures and appropriate fermentation. Ultra-pasteurized yogurt, common in modern supermarkets, is heated intensely enough to kill cultures and alter protein structures. Honey that preserves its enzymatic activity is raw and unfiltered, while commercial honey is often heated to prevent crystallization, destroying some of those enzymes. This is not an argument against modern food production. It is simply an observation about what happens between a food's natural state and the final product on your plate. Ancient methods such as cold fermentation, stone grinding, soaking, and whole food preservation were not necessarily primitive. In many cases, they protected the compounds that made the food valuable. Modern production has optimized food for shelf life, appearance, convenience, and price, not always for nutritional function. So there is a question worth carrying beyond this video. If civilizations as different as ancient Sumer, the Maya, Norse seafarers, and Byzantine monastics independently relied on fermented dairy, complete animal protein, and properly prepared whole grains as foundations of physical capability, what does that convergence tell us about what the human body was designed to thrive on? Modern research is beginning to uncover the molecular answers. The ancient world had already discovered many of the practical ones. If this changed how you think about your morning plate, hit like. It helps this reach people who are serious about rebuilding strength through real food. Subscribe and ring the bell because we explore the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern nutrition science every week. Share this with someone trying to maintain their strength who may not realize what breakfast can actually do for them. And leave a comment below. Which breakfast are you building first? And what subject should we explore next? The conversation is just beginning.